Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to the second part of our two-part series about fabricated kidnappings. If you haven't seen part 1, be sure to check that out first. We'll leave a link in the description below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this. It really helps us to continue building the channel. With that out of the way, here is part 2 of 2 bizarre stories of fake kidnapping. In the spring of 2002, Dr. Mark Salerno seemed like he was living the perfect life. The 45-year-old pediatrician was beloved by his patients and was one of the most respected members in his town of Carefree, Arizona, where he lived with his wife of 22 years, Irene Haroldson. The private practice that Mark had started in nearby Scottsdale a year earlier was booming, and it wasn't hard to understand why. Everyone around him could see that he was passionate about his work. More than anything, Mark loved helping kids. He had started out his career as a teacher, working with special needs children in Boston, but when he was accepted into medical school, decided to become a doctor, and soon discovered that he had found his calling. When he and Irene moved to Arizona in the late 1990s, Mark quickly developed a reputation as the kind of doctor who went above and beyond for his young patients and their parents. He gave out his pager number and was available to anyone who needed him around the clock. It was well known that he never failed to return a call within 20 minutes. This reputation made it all the more troubling when on May 6, 2002, Mark suddenly vanished. According to his wife Irene, the morning had started out like any other. She had last seen Mark as he climbed into his beige 1997 Toyota Camry and headed to the Shea Medical Center in Scottsdale, where he was going to check on a newborn patient. Witnesses said that Mark had indeed arrived for the checkup that morning and appeared to be acting normal. However, after that, he had not been seen again. He failed to arrive at his office on East Bell Road, where he had a full day of scheduled appointments. Police were quick to reach out to the public for any information concerning Mark's whereabouts, but pointed out that they didn't yet have any reason to believe that foul play was involved. Still, many that knew Mark believed that there was serious cause for concern. Irene said that he had never disappeared like this before. Friends, family, and members of the public waited anxiously for 3 days, until on the afternoon of May 9th, it was announced that Mark had been found alive. The doctor was discovered in the trunk of his car, nearly 400 miles away from his home in Balboa Park in San Diego, California. His vehicle had been spotted by a freelance photographer in the area who recognized it. The photographer called for help after hearing Mark yelling and banging from the inside. Because there was no obvious quick release on the trunk of the vehicle, when authorities arrived, firefighters had to rescue Mark using the jaws of life. The dramatic scene played out live on televised news reports across the nation, showing a dehydrated and disoriented Mark with duct tape around his ankles being rescued from his harrowing ordeal. Or at least, that's what everyone initially thought. When Mark was first found in his vehicle, he told authorities that he had been kidnapped by a group of men. He claimed that the men had driven him around for some time before finally forcing him into the trunk of his car and leaving him there. However, notable parts of Mark's story seemed off to investigators, including the fact that Mark seemingly had no recollection of where his kidnapping had actually taken place. When he was found, his ankles were duct taped, but his hands were free and he hadn't been gagged. Despite being missing for 3 days, he also appeared to be clean-shaven. Mark's entire account of the events officially crumbled after a viewer of the news broadcast who had seen him being rescued contacted police. They said that they had recently been in Balboa Park and had witnessed Mark climbing into the trunk and closing the lid on himself without anyone else around. Following this witness statement, Mark confessed that he had never actually been kidnapped. A possible reason behind the fabricated crime didn't take long to fall into place. It turned out that Mark had actually been arrested just 2 weeks before his disappearance and was currently facing charges for vehicle theft. The Isuzu Rodeo SUV had allegedly been stolen from a woman who had worked in Mark's office building, whom he had been helping to train as a medical assistant. The woman had lost her keys at the office back in August of 2000, only to find that the vehicle had been taken a few days later. When Mark was stopped for a traffic violation 2 weeks before his disappearance, he was driving the car, which had been equipped with license plates that he had allegedly stolen from a second vehicle. On the very same day that Mark was found in San Diego, he was supposed to appear in court for a preliminary hearing regarding the vehicle theft. Mark told investigators that his disappearance was due to financial pressures and stress that he was under because of his involvement in 2 previous medical clinics. Though his thriving private practice made it appear that he was completely successful, reports emerged that he was actually in serious debt, and that 2 years earlier he had been ordered to pay $13,000 worth of unpaid bills. One of his creditors had even tried to have his wages garnished. Mark further explained that he was suffering from severe depression, and that when he originally disappeared, he had driven to the Hoover Dam, where he planned to take his own life. However, he was unable to go through with it, and had continued to California, where he had staged the kidnapping in an attempt to explain his absence. The confession that the kidnapping had been staged was a shock to everyone that knew Mark, as well as the public who had followed the story. Though many were angered by the fabrication, no one seemed to take it as personally as Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. In the aftermath of Mark's confession, Arpaio made several comments about how the case had angered him and vowed to seek restitution for the taxpayers, saying, quote, "I think I'm going to send him a nice little bill." He also made the highly unusual choice to send a helicopter to California with detectives on board, which was used to bring Mark back to Arizona. 2 months later, in July of 2002, Arpaio filed an official request for Mark to pay $7,909.86 back to the county, which he claimed was the cost of their investigation. He also said that he planned to try and bill Mark a further $1,700 for the helicopter. Though Mark was never brought up on charges related to the staged kidnapping, he accepted a plea deal in the vehicle theft case, pleading guilty to unlawful use of a means of transportation. In September of 2002, he was sentenced to 3 years probation and 200 hours of community service. The Arizona Medical Board allowed Mark to resume his practice, as long as he abided by several conditions, including reducing his workload, submitting to drug tests, and attending counseling. He agreed to the terms and began seeing patients again shortly after. However, it didn't take long for Mark to make headlines once again. Just a few weeks later, on Halloween, he vanished for a second time after taking his dog on a walk at 7:30 in the morning. He took with him the same beige Toyota Camry as before. Though no one had any reason to believe that Mark had been kidnapped this time, friends and family were understandably even more worried about what kind of danger he might be in. His wife came out and told the media that his depression had only worsened in the weeks since his sentencing, and that he was struggling with thoughts of taking his own life. For more than 2 weeks, no trace of Mark could be found, until his car was discovered abandoned in Moraine State Park, north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The keys were still in the ignition of the vehicle, along with Mark's wallet and blankets that he had been using while sleeping in the car. Most disturbing of all was a note that it appeared that he had written to himself that said, quote, "Stay alert. Their relentless pursuit requires constant vigilance." Mark was finally tracked down a day later, after he was spotted by a woman walking through the backyards of several homes in the town of Slippery Rock. The woman contacted police after seeing a disheveled-looking man grab a towel off of a clothesline. The woman would later say that the man looked like a lost soul. Over the protests of many of Mark's friends, family members, and former patients, he was taken to jail rather than a dedicated mental health facility. This was because the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department considered the disappearance to be a violation of his parole in the vehicle theft case, and they obtained a warrant for his arrest just days after Mark went missing. In comments to the local media, Sheriff Joe Arpaio doubled down on the decision, saying that he wanted to pursue Mark, quote, "whether he is crazy or not." He also said that he wanted to send Mark another bill like he had done last time, and hoped that he got prison time for violating his parole. However, as more information came out about Mark's mental health issues, public opinion quickly turned on Arpaio. It turned out that between his first and second disappearance, Mark's illness had been misdiagnosed, and the medication he was on caused him to grow increasingly paranoid. He alleged that he ran away because he believed his life was in imminent danger. He had since been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a condition that can trigger symptoms from hallucinations to mania and paranoia. In light of this new information, opinion pieces began to appear in the local newspapers, accompanied by multiple letters to the editor expressing the desire to see Mark get treatment rather than jail time. In December of 2002, the judge in Mark's probation violation hearing agreed with these sentiments, and he was freed without any additional jail time. He was still required to serve his probation and fulfill his community service, and eventually paid $10,000 in restitution to the woman whose SUV he had stolen back in August of 2000. For the next few years, Mark struggled to rebuild his life, but slowly found some success. In 2004, he was hired to do training and consulting for Recovery Innovations of Arizona, a non-profit organization that specializes in delivering crisis care to people struggling with addiction and mental health issues. Mark did extremely well within the organization and won over his colleagues and students, and eventually became a counselor at one of Recovery Innovations' crisis centers in Peoria. Though Mark surrendered his medical license after his second disappearance in 2002, he eventually earned it back. By 2011, it appeared that he had totally turned his life around, and was the subject of a long-form article in the Phoenix New Times entitled, "Dr. Mark Salerno is living proof that it's possible to overcome mental illness." While nothing out of the ordinary seems to have happened in Mark's life for several years after that, sadly, in October of 2018, he went missing for a third time. He was last seen on the 12th of that month at his home in North Phoenix, and at that time was believed to have been traveling in his green 2001 Ford Explorer. We searched for any updates we could find about the case, but unfortunately, not much is known about Mark's final disappearance, and no substantial updates appear to have been given since. While many still hold out hope that Mark will be found alive and well, the case is a poignant reminder of what a lifelong struggle mental illness is, and how profoundly it affects those who live with it, as well as the people around them. Hopefully, Mark's disappearance will someday be solved, and at the very least, his family and friends can get the closure that they deserve. Do you know of any other cases like this that you think we should check out? Tell us about them in the comments section below. As always, if you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest releases. Thank you for watching.